Los Angeles is known as the City of Angels, but under the bright neon lights of Hollywood lies a gritty, darker reality. Mark, an investigative journalist, checked into a notorious historic hotel near Skid Row, a place with a long history of unexplained disappearances and dark energy. The lobby was grand and gilded, but the air felt heavy and stagnant, smelling of old cigarette smoke and something metallic, like copper. Mark had heard rumors about a ghost floor that only appeared on the elevator's panel after midnight. While the hotel officially only had 13 floors of guest rooms, the elevator buttons were worn down, and there was a faint, scratched-in number 14 at the very bottom. Driven by the need for a viral story, he waited until the clock struck 12 a.m. and pressed the hidden mark. The elevator didn't go up. It groaned and plunged downward, deep below the street level of Los Angeles. When the doors finally slid open, Mark wasn't in a hotel hallway anymore. He was in a vast, underground bunker that looked like a replica of the city's famous underground tunnels, used during the Prohibition era to smuggle dark secrets across the city. The walls were lined with thousands of vintage film reels, but they weren't made of plastic. They looked like strips of dried leather. As he walked, he heard the faint sound of a projector humming. On the damp concrete walls, he saw black and white footage of people walking on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. But in the film, their shadows were detached from their bodies, moving independently. He stumbled into a room that looked like a makeshift studio. In the center was a red velvet chair, and sitting in it was a figure wearing a 1920s tuxedo, but its face was a hollow mask of static. This was the director, a legendary LA figure whispered about by the homeless residents of Skid Row, the one who casts people into the city's shadows. Mark saw stacks of missing person posters, real ones from the last 50 years of LA history. He realized that these people hadn't just disappeared, they had been archived. Their voices were being recorded on old wax cylinders that lined the shelves, creating a low, dissonant chorus of whispers that filled the underground chamber with a soul-crushing dread. The air became thick with a yellow, sulfurous fog, the same smog that often blankets Los Angeles. But here, it was sentient. It coiled around Mark's ankles like cold snakes. He saw faces in the smoke, faces of starlets who never made it, and actors who vanished after their first audition. They were the unseen population of the city, trapped in this digital purgatory. On a wooden desk, he found a contract written in a dark, shimmering ink. It was a deal for eternal fame, signed by names he recognized from Hollywood's golden age. But the fine print revealed the cost. Their physical bodies were used to fuel the city's neon lights, while their spirits were locked in this subterranean film vault forever. Mark found a mirror in the corner, but when he looked into it, he saw the Santa Monica Pier, only it was burning. The reflection showed a version of LA where the sun never rose and the palm trees were made of rusted iron. He realized that the real Los Angeles was just a thin veneer over this horrific, decaying machine. A distant police siren wailed, but it sounded like a dying animal. The director stood up and pointed a skeletal finger at Mark. "Every story needs a victim," the static voice crackled. Suddenly, the film reels on the floor began to unspool, wrapping around Mark's legs like living vines, pulling him toward a massive, industrial-sized film projector. As the film touched his skin, Mark felt his memories being burned onto the strips. He saw his childhood, his first job, and his move to LA flashing before his eyes at 24 frames per second. He was being turned into content, a permanent part of the city's dark media library, his life becoming a loop of footage that would never be seen by the world above. He tried to run, but the floor turned into a river of black ink, the ink of infamy. He saw the bodies of those who tried to expose the city's secrets floating in the dark liquid. The river led to a massive turbine under the Griffith Observatory, which used the energy of lost souls to keep the Hollywood sign glowing bright for the tourists. The director approached him with a porcelain mask that had no eyes. "Wear the mask, and you will never be forgotten," it whispered. Mark realized that everyone he saw on the news, every star that seemed too perfect, was actually wearing one of these masks, hiding the fact that they had no soul left inside. Mark felt his voice being cut away, as if an editor were using a pair of scissors on his throat. He tried to scream, but the only sound was the click, click, click of a film reel finishing its run. His body felt light and thin, like a piece of paper. He was no longer a man. He was a negative, a shadow waiting to be projected. The next morning, the hotel staff found an empty room on the 13th floor. There was no sign of struggle, only a single, vintage film canister sitting on the bed. Meanwhile, on a telephone pole in Skid Row, a new missing poster appeared with Mark's face on it. Above him, the LA sun shone brightly, but in the shadows of the hotel, the projector was still humming.